Hi, Sally here with your next question for our summer question series. This is a bit of a follow-on from the last two questions, and that is, I've done my chart setup. I thought I did it right, but my one tap marker isn't really lined up with my rows. And if I go into magic markers and I add a magic marker, like the sample stitch isn't aligned with the chart grid, it's not working, what's going on? And this is because when you set up the chart, like in this case from last week's question, we kept the row numbers on the side and at the bottom, and we didn't adjust it quite right so that it would work properly for keeping that extra information outside the chart. So let's go to setup. And let's take a look at what we have. So you'll come into setup and it'll look like this, and you'll like, oh, I think that's right. When you tap to turn check grid on, see how that red grid, let's zoom in here, that red grid isn't lined up with the chart grid at all. So this is because even though this chart has 5 rows, I kept this row at the bottom. I'm going to turn cropping on here just so we have that available to us. We can see that it's just not going to work because we kept this extra row at the bottom. So we need to set our visible rows to 6 because we're keeping this extra at the bottom. And now it's lined up really nicely, but make sure if you're keeping stuff outside the chart that you adjust that crop line manually so that that red line does line up. And then we need to do exactly the same thing for the stitches. So this does have 7 stitches across, but I'm keeping a whole extra column. So I have to increase this to 8. And then I have to adjust my cropping line so that inside the grid, that red grid that's being drawn perfectly lines up, because that is actually what the app is going to be using, is that grid. So this is a sample from keeping the numbers, but really the goal is always to make sure that grid is lining up with your chart grid. And if it's not, you need to kind of take a look and kind of figure out why it's not. Happy knitting.